Hello everyone and welcome back to Blockbuster Reviews. This is your favorite place for the coolest reviews of the hottest things. In this video, we're going to review the classic international bestseller on personal financial success called The Richest Man in Babylon. And in this video, we're going to look at 7 points the author mentions that if you commit to, you will become a roaring financial success in life. The book is called The Richest Man in Babylon because at the time of the writing of this book, Babylon was a geographic center for financial prosperity. So according to the author, if you follow the principles laid out in this book, you could become the richest man in the most prosperous land that you have in mind. We're going to analyze each claim and see if the book actually can make you rich. So let's get started.
According to the author of the book, George S. Clason, there are 7 steps to amassing incredible wealth. Let's take a look at each one of them. Rule number 1. Start thy purse to fattening. George S. Clason says, for every 10 coins you place in your purse, spend only 9. Now, let's see whether this claim is correct or not. According to statistics, 34% of Americans have 0% in savings. No wonder the large class of Americans live only on a day-to-day basis and never really enjoy abundant wealth. Let's take a look at another figure for confirmation of this rule, shall we? 69% of Americans have less than $1,000 in savings for emergencies, and we're not even talking about investments. They don't even have savings for emergencies. So yes, rule number 1 checks out. You can't get rich without saving money. Let's take a look at rule number 2. Rule number 2 says, control thy expenditures. Here the author says that you need to budget your expenses so you may have money to pay for your expenses and your enjoyment, but you cannot violate rule number 1 and spend more than 9/10 of your income. Let's take a look at the data to verify this claim. As our world is evolving, generation after generation, the amount of expenditures is increasing with consumerism. At the time of baby boomers, the average expenditure out of the income that was spent on luxuries was only 18%, which has now risen to 60% in the case of the newest generation, Generation Z. Rule number 2 gets a thumbs up. If you're going to spend a large percentage of your income on luxuries, you're never going to get rich. Rule number 3 says, make thy gold multiply, meaning invest in gold. Let's see this one, shall we? These statistics show how much of a protection against inflation different financial instruments have given us in the last 100 years. Here we see the largest protection was given by investing in the stock market, and the least by keeping cash. Unfortunately, gold's record is not very good in giving protection against inflation. The 1% protection means that gold did not beat inflation over the last 100 years. It seems like the author didn't get this rule very correct. While it is true that gold managed to protect people against the rising prices of things, but in reality it wasn't much better than keeping cash. There were other investments such as stocks and real estate which did much better. Rule number 3 does not check out. Let's go to rule number 4, which says guard thy treasures from loss, which means invest only where your principal amount is safe, where it may be claimed whenever it is needed. Let's analyze this claim. The claim the author makes about us carelessly investing comes from the fact that people blindly follow the advice of quote-unquote financial gurus who lead them to their financial ruin. So, let's see what happens when you just do what others are doing and aren't careful about your investing. Research has shown that 90% of the traders lose 90% of their money within 90 days or 3 months of starting their trading. These figures are absolutely dismal. Imagine out of 100 people, only 10 people are able to get past the first 3 months in investing. This clearly shows people don't learn to invest and jeopardize all of their incomes just because they want to do what everyone else is doing. Let's go to rule number 5. Make thy dwelling a profitable investment, meaning own your own home. In order to verify the author's claim of owning your own home being a good investment, let's take a closer look at whether or not the increase in the price of housing has beaten inflation decade on decade. According to the chart before you, apart from the 1990s, the increase in the prices of housing has far beaten the inflation levels. So yes, it actually seems like real estate is a good investment. Here we have a hypothetical scenario where 2 women, Patty and Ingrid, decide to buy houses. Patty, the column on the left, decides to live in the house, whereas Ingrid the column on the right, decides to rent out the house. Each make a down payment of $250,000 because Patty was incurring all of the expenses living in the house and Ingrid was paying off all of her expenses from the rental income she was making. In 30 years, Patty, who decided to live in the house, had a negative growth of approximately $239,000, and Ingrid, who decided to rent her house, had seen a positive growth of $1.45 million. This makes us assume that giving a house on rent is better than living in it. While this is true, but if you were living in a rented house yourself, then you'd spend your entire life giving rent. So if you can afford to buy more than one house, one should keep one only for oneself and rent out the rest. So while owning a home is a good investment, from an investment point of view, one should not own more than one home. Rule number 5 checks out, but with this condition. Rule number 6, ensure a future income. According to this chart, the average household savings increases with age. And if you invest early and keep saving between the ages of 55 and 65, you can end up with nearly $450,000 in savings. If this money is further put to good use, then you can ensure for yourself passive income from that investment as long as you're alive. But for this rule to work, you have to start saving early on. Take the example of 3 people, Jack, Jill, and Jerry, represented by blue, green, and red lines respectively. Jack, Jill, and Jerry each invest $200 starting from the ages of 25, 35, and 45. At retirement ages, Jack, who starts investing at the age of 25, shown by the blue line, ends up with $550,000. Jill, who starts investing at 35, shown by the green line, ends up with $250,000. And Joey, who starts investing at 45, ends up with only $100,000. So to ensure future income, you must start investing early. So rule number 6, ensure your future income gets a thumbs up. But here too, like the previous rule, there's a condition attached that you need to start saving or investing early and wisely to reap the benefits when you're older. Let's take a look at the final rule. Rule number 7, study to become wiser and more skillful. If I didn't know any better, it seemed like the author was referring to self-development, or otherwise known as self-help. Let's take a look at some interesting research here. 85% of the millionaires own on average between 2 and 3 self-help books. The average net worth of those who subscribe to the Fortune magazine is $250,000. 85% of rich people read 2 to 3 self-development books in a month. The rest of the 15% who are poor either read only fiction or nothing at all. 94% of the rich people read newspapers and blogs, whereas 11% of the people who are poor don't read anything productive.
So, ladies and gentlemen, this was my review of the book, The Richest Man in Babylon, and I find that the book is absolutely wonderful. It is a classic international bestseller, and there's a reason for that. Most of the principles that George S. Clason has mentioned in the book are all workable. They all work in your favor, and I would give this book a solid 8 out of 10. I highly recommend this book. It's a cheap book. You can get it on Amazon for about $6 or $7. It's only about 160 or 70 pages in this format, and it's very easy to read. You can finish it in only 1 or 2 days. I suggest you right now go for this book and do not delay your development. Thank you very much.